We are live. Welcome to episode 64 of Anonymous Bites Back. I am having hold on one technical issue with this box. It won't move. All right, so OBS messed up a little bit on the video chat. It should grow. There we go. All right. And we do have a special guest on today. We got Brendan. Brady, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Brendan Brady from Creep Hunters Canada Society. And we are a group of advocates that hunt online predators and assist multiple policing departments throughout Canada, the US, and the UK with convicting online predators.
Yeah, so I've been managing to watch you on and off here and there for since September. Now you guys have come a long way from where you were about 6 months ago, right?
Who?
Brendan?
Sorry, I had a problem. My mic was cutting out there. Yeah, we've come a long way, and we're continuing to evolve and continuing to grow as we move forward here. We're in 3 countries now, so we've come a long way. I joined this group about 9 to 10 months ago, and it's amazing how much support we get from the public and how far we've been able to take that.
Oh, I was under the impression that this was all your operation. So you're with a larger crew.
Well, when I first joined, there was a couple different districts already up and running. They were publicly shaming. I went out as a cameraman actually on my first 2 hunts there, and we publicly shamed the guy, and then the guys, both of them, walked away. And as a survivor myself, it really bothered me seeing these guys just walk away. So I sort of changed the rules, and the people in the group that wanted to stay and make sure people get arrested and get through the justice system here in Canada ended up staying. So then from there, we took it down to the US, and then we took it to the UK.
I gotcha. And you also do you are you still live streaming all of your hunts anymore?
I still live stream them. Yeah, I don't live stream all of them. Not all of our hunts get a video that gets posted. It's totally up to the police. That's one of the biggest things that sort of when we first started doing things this way, we gave up quite a few hunts without being able to post a video for or even talk about in order for the police to come out and make arrests. So it's really up to them at the end of the day whether or not we can post. But we try to post the ones that we can, and I know we have some new ones that are going to be coming out here pretty soon that are going to be edited ahead of time as a part of our new series that we're going to be releasing here.
I gotcha. So typically, how does a typical pedo hunt go down? To those who aren't really familiar with any of this stuff.
Well, I can't speak for any of the other groups, but for my group, myself personally as well, what we do is that we create online profiles through various social media apps and dating sites and all of that. We pose as underage people, and when a alleged predator talks to us, we allow them to groom our decoys instead of grooming a real child. And once a predator has a significant amount of sexual content in their conversations towards us, and they want to meet us, they ask to meet, then we will call the local authorities, wherever that happens to be. and let them know what's going on and about the alleged predator, and then we'll show them the chat logs, and then they will either tell us, okay, when's the guy going to be here to meet? We'll be there to make an arrest, or they'll say, you know what, I don't think there's enough evidence in here. If they say there's not enough evidence, then we move along to the next person. I just posted a video there on Creep Hunters Canada Society's Facebook page, and as you guys can see on there, I made a decoy profile 5 days ago, and I've already got over 100 people throughout Canada and the U.S. that are talking to my decoy, right? So it's a big problem, and we try to do our part to get these guys through the justice system the best we can.
So, do a majority of these guys go to jail, or is it always a hit? Is it always a
Well, we've had a couple of convictions now. A lot of our guys are still getting processed, especially here in Canada. Our justice system is bogged down quite a bit. I just posted an article the other day where they were talking about, I think it was CBC did a story last week there where they were talking about a few cases where there was murderers and rapists that their charges have been stayed now just because they've been going through the court system for so long, right? So it's a really big problem how backed up our court system is, and I think a lot of that comes from minor parole violations seem to be backing up our system, at least from the articles and the information that we've gathered ourselves. It would appear that way. So we're in a waiting process. The last one I did in Kelowna there a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago now. They said that it could take 6 to 8 months for them to see a court date, just because our justice system is so bogged down, right?
6 to 8 months? Oh my God! I was gonna say you don't hear too much of that coming out on my side of the border usually, but I don't know. I've only been wrapped up in well, I have passed, but it was a lot of drug convictions. But usually you go in and out of the system. But 6 to 8 months, is that what you said?
Yeah, that's correct. 6 to 8 months. And that's not to say that, if somebody gets lured off the internet and like a child gets kidnapped or anything like that, that it's going to take that long. That's just to say in this particular situation where there's no child involved, but there still is crimes being committed. As of right now, that's what I was told. It's something that we're trying to change through our Let's Talk Change events. Every month we do a live event at an actual venue that people can go to learn about protecting your children online, learn a little bit about the laws, and you can actually sign a letter to your local MP that will drop off for you at our event. So our next event is in Calgary. It's August 26th. And it should be pretty good. We've got some amazing speakers lined up that I can't talk too much about just yet. But it's going to be a good event. So that's one of the areas that we want to see things change. Right? Is our justice system here in Canada? We want it to be more closer in line with what the United States has as far as dealing with these guys and a public registry and all that stuff.
Oh, you guys don't have that up there?
We have a sex offenders registry, but as of right now, it's only available to the police. So like in Washington, you could move into a new suburb, right? And you could type in your address, and it'll pull up the sex offenders close to your area even before you buy the house, right? So your kids are protected. We don't have that in Canada. We want that, and that's what we're petitioning for through our Let's Talk Change events.
Yeah. Because even here in the U.S., if you got some sort of like sexual crime or anything, if you're a sex offender in general, you're not even allowed to live within so many. So there's a certain distance you can't even be living within a public school. Yeah. There's certain zones where they can't even live in. What was it? What was I gonna say? Totally forgot what I was gonna say.
I hear what you're saying, though. That's the type of thing that we want to see have happen to Canada here, because right now, I mean, there was a case in Toronto, pretty recent, where an abuser actually ended up moving next door to the person that he had abused, and there was nothing that anybody was able to do about that. So those are the type of things that we're really trying to push for change, right? I know a lot of people get upset because there's other groups out there that are blasting people and showing their face and all this type of stuff. And we don't do that. We don't release any of the information about the alleged predator until a conviction's made. And I know that upsets some people, but people have to understand that it's not up to us to decide what the outcomes of somebody's actions should be. If we want the laws to change as Canadian residents, then it's up to us as people to lobby our government, not just to take actions into our hand and start accusing people of stuff over the internet, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there was that hockey player. What's his name? He did a walk to. He's kind of pushing for the same laws that you're doing. What's his name? God,
I forget.
Yeah,
but I think I know who you're referring to.
yeah. He was sexually molested as a child from his hockey coach, and he's pushing for the same laws, the same changes.
Yeah, something that our government doesn't like to talk about up here. If you look back, I've seen the PDF documents of the counter human trafficking action plan that our government has. And in 2014, we spent less than $200,000 that entire year on awareness of the issue. Right? We have a pretty big issue out here that most people don't realize.
Yeah, there were some scary statistics that he was even saying. He was saying that on your side, in Canada, the statistics were like 1 in 10 kids are abused. That's still a high percent,
Yeah, and that's also out of the kids that are actually get reported, right? The abuse that actually gets reported, right? Our statistics also say that 86% of all abuse doesn't actually get reported. So this goes to show how big the issue is here in Canada. And, it's something that people aren't willing to talk about. It's something that our own government doesn't really like to talk about a whole lot. The police do all they can. They do a fantastic job. I will always say that they do a fantastic job. I'm very pro-police. But at the end of the day, it's the funding that they get that really determines how much they can focus their energy on different things, right? I've heard from multiple officers across our country here that a big part of the problem is that they just don't have the manpower to deal with all these guys, right? And that's something that has to change. The internet's only going to, get bigger, and more kids are going to be growing up on the internet as time goes on, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think in Germany now, if you get caught, I believe the court has an option of chemically castrating the accuser, or if you go through the system, they can chemically castrate you legally.
I never heard about that, but it's interesting that you bring up Germany, because Germany is actually one of the first places and one of the only places in the world where they actually have a mental health program in place for sexual offenders in Germany. So if you're an individual and you have pedophilic tendencies, you can actually go and get help in Germany versus other countries. If you're, all these different groups out there are saying, if you have this problem, why don't you go talk to somebody, in their videos and stuff. And the problem is that they can't talk to anybody, because the second that somebody reaches out that, hasn't offended before or anything like that, but is feeling this way, as soon as they reach out to a counselor or a therapist, they have to be reported, right? It's the law. So you bring that up with a counselor, that counselor is going to report you. So it really deters a lot of people from wanting to even seek help for this, right?
Yeah.
But Germany is totally different. They actually have a center there where people can get help for this type of stuff. And I think that's a big part of it too, right? Is the mental illness aspect has to be looked at in a new light, because it is a disease, right? Time has proven that. People go to jail, they get let out, they reoffend, they go back to jail because nothing's being solved, right? The mental health program that Canada has in our jails for sexual offenders is not strong enough to create any real type of change. and that's coming from an actual correctional officer that I've had conversations with. Complaining about the lack of mental health programs available for these type of offenses.
Yeah, I was going to say most of these guys who commit these crimes are victims themselves, And the sad thing is, I believe the DSM-5, which is a diagnosis statistics manual for mental health, I believe they took out pedophilia here. Well, at least I don't know if they use it internationally, but it's not there. I don't believe it's there anymore.
Yeah, and there's like I said, looking at the documents that actually show the outlines of the mental health programs available in our jail in Canada, they show there's maybe 4 or 5 pages in there that talk about sexual offenders, and the rehabilitation program for them is just ridiculous, right? It really needs to be treated like a disease, because it is a disease. There's actually programs that have gone on where they've studied certain people, and they can see different parts of their brains activating at different times, right? And it really is a mental disease. I truly believe it is. I'm not making any excuses for anybody's actions, of course not, but it needs to be looked in a different light. So
you mean like sexual addiction and drug addiction, stuff like that?
Yeah, right. It's all relevant. So there has to be a better mental health program in our prisons in order to deal with these guys, right? Because these guys go to jail, they go to jail for a few years, if they do get a few years, right? And then they get let back out to reoffend or, move on with their life, where they're survivors, such as myself and many people in our group. In fact, most of our group are survivors themselves. Have to live on the rest of our lives with not being able to trust people in relationships, with having all these, sort of backward ass belief systems on relationships and on how we view other people and stuff, right? And my abuser when I was young was a male, right? So I grew up, distancing myself from guys and gravitating towards having more friends that were girls, just because of the impact that it had on my psyche, right? And I didn't have it as bad as a lot of kids too. So, it's a problem that affects people for the rest of their lives. And these guys are going to jail for, in Canada, it's a minimum of 90 days if you go in front of a judge. And if you go if you go to a trial, go to a jury, your minimum is a year. But that's just a slap on the face, considering how long the heartache is for the survivors, right?
Well, yeah, a lot of the victims, and I used to deal with it on the counseling for drug addiction. It would come up a lot. Well, a lot of the victims have end up with disorders like post-traumatic stress disorder, upon turning to drugs and alcohol for dealing with the trauma. What else? What else was another weird one that pops up? Sometimes even borderline personality disorder pops up because of the molestation and sexual abuse as a child.
Yeah, for sure. Those are all things that stem from it, right? And I will give our government here in Canada some props. They spend a lot of money, in the millions and millions a year towards programs for victim services. I mean, I think we have a pretty decent victim services here in Canada, but as far as the prevention goes, I think we're pretty weak here. Less than $200,000 a year to make, Canadians aware that we have a trafficking problem, when, 25% of the people that get stuck in the human trafficking rings outside of Canada, so that being Canadian children, or Canadian people, 25% of them are under the ages of 18, right? Those are huge numbers when you're thinking of an entire country.
Yeah. Did you say only 200,000 was spent on spreading awareness? That's it?
Well, the last time they released their budget, saying how much they spent in different areas when it comes to trafficking.
Yeah.
They spent $155,000 for 2014 on awareness of trafficking. So that doesn't include the cost of training their officers and all of that. That's like programs to, on billboard signs to make people aware that we have a trafficking problem, those type of things, right? The TV ads, all that type of stuff. They spend $155,000, and that was in 2004. They haven't released anything since then, as far as that goes.
I gotcha. Um,
You look at 2004, there was still, a few thousand people that have gone missing, right? So,
so I did manage to catch where you guys are catching the Johns or the guys. So you guys aren't doing this off of Facebook. You guys are doing this on dating sites, right?
we have a couple different areas that we work within. We work within social media, so not necessarily Facebook, but some of the other social media applications. We do it on dating sites. Mind you, we don't really go on adult dating sites a whole lot. You'd actually be surprised how many dating sites out there actually allow you to put your age as a minor when you're signing up. And those are the ones that we use because we don't do the old bait and switch, right? We don't say, oh, we're 18, and then later on in the conversation, oh, surprise, we're 16 years old, or 14 years old. We don't do that. We have it right on our profile. So as soon as they're clicking on it, they know already from seeing our profile how old we are and what we're about, right? Because at the end of the day, we're not doing this to get views. We're not doing this to gain popularity or shares or anything like that. We're doing this to get the guys that are creepy, the guys that are bad, off of the streets and off of the internet, right? So if people are, misunderstanding the age, or they don't really understand who they're talking to or anything like that, we're not there to bait anybody or lure anybody out from the dark, right? We're there for the guys that are actually creepy and that are doing this, right? And that's why a lot of our guys are reoffenders, and a lot of our guys, like my last one there in Kelowna, when me and the officers took his phone, there was no lock screen on his phone, so the officer was actually able to go in there and verify from his end that he was talking to me and stuff. And he actually saw, the officer himself saw, I think it was 4 or 5 other kids that this guy was actually talking to on the same app that were somebody's real children, right? So
Do you ever get repeat guys? Like you get one guy, he'll come away and then he'll come back. You ever get any of those?
I get a lot of guys, yeah, that'll talk to me and then they'll tell me to f off, kind of thing, and then they'll come back like a week later, and then I'll remind them again, oh, did you check my profile? You know how old I am, kind of thing, right? Just because some time has gone past, I need to make sure that they are fully aware, kind of thing. But I've never had somebody that I've caught that we've actually caught again, because when we catch them, they get arrested, right? So it seems to deter them from going back on the apps. I've got a couple of the guys that we've got arrested over the last 6 months here, and their account's still on the app that my decoy's on, but it hasn't been active since we did this sting operation, right?
Yeah.
That being said, when we used to publicly shame, I did catch a guy that a separate group has caught before. So that has happened, but once we've got the police involved, so 30 catches ago roughly, since we got the police involved, I haven't had a single person come and talk to any of my decoys again after they've been arrested.
Now, are there any like how should I say, anybody in law enforcement that's doing the same thing that you're doing now? I know here in stateside we do have like vice squads that deal with baiting baiting prostitution rings and stuff like that. But is there anybody in the law enforcement field that's doing the same thing that you are?
So in Canada, we have it's called ICE. It's the Internet Child Exploitation Unit. It's pretty much like Vice down there. I've worked with both, and they do stuff that's similar. But again, that's their own sort of thing. I'm not a part of that when they're doing it on their own or anything like that. That being said, there's a couple different departments here in Canada that will actually call before the person wants to even meet, and we'll arrange to meet with the ICE unit so that it works with their schedule.
Now you're now we talked a little bit before the show started. So now you're doing this full time, right? Like full time, just catching creep catching.
Yeah, creep hunting, but Yeah, I'm pretty much doing this full time. I mean, I work a couple hours a week right now.
Yeah, I was sorry, I was just got a little flabbergasted for a second. So
Do this full time, and we're completely self funded. We take donations, but we're totally self funded.
yeah, I was gonna say I think I caught at one point that people were sending you tons of cell phones and stuff like that at one point.
Yeah, we get a lot of cell phone donations. All of our phones come from the public domain. They get donated, whether that be a cell phone provider or somebody that services the towers, or somebody who has a dusty phone in their closet that they want to get rid of. Every time we catch somebody, every time we do a hunt, we submit our donated chatting devices right there, so that there's no issues getting our evidence to court, right? But that being said, it does cost us quite a bit to run as an operation, but we're more than happy to pay for that out of our own pockets for the cause, because, like I said, a lot of us here are survivors ourselves. I know that for myself, Creep Hunters Canada Society cost me about $1,000 a month to run, and it's totally fine with me. Like, I want to get these guys and get our laws changed so that it works better.
Yeah, and now how long have you been a creep catcher though?
Well, I'm a creep hunter. I'm not a creep catcher,
Sorry,
but
creep hunter. My bad.
okay, it happens. I've been doing this for, I think, 9 or 10 months now, coming up on that.
So like when I caught you in like September, you were just starting out.
Yeah, myself. Yeah, I was just getting started. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing you in a car, just smoking a cigarette, waiting, and with the live streaming. That's crazy.
Yeah. A little
And
bit different now. Usually I get picked up in a police car and then we go and do our thing. So
oh, really? Oh, I got you. I got you.
I remember the first time I got to do that, man, I was so giddy. I was like, "Oh my god, like we're gonna go get him, and I'm in your car. This is awesome." I remember I made a joke with the officer. We dropped off my car. Quick story: we dropped off my car to go and get this one guy, and I hop inside of his car, and I didn't bother putting my seatbelt on yet. And I was like, "Well, can you technically give me a ticket for being in the front seat of your car with no seatbelt?" He was like, "If I was a jerk, I could." You don't seem like a jerk. He's like, "No, I'm not a jerk." So they got a sense of humor too, right? I love the police, man. They're just great, great.
what is the most weird hunt you've ever been on?
The most what?
Weird.
Oh, I don't know. They're all pretty weird, man. Um, the weirdest one I've ever been on. Okay, so this is one of my two hunts. Quick story. This is one of my two hunts that I actually did public shaming with, and we were gonna meet this guy, and it was at a coffee shop somewhere. I think it was in New Westminster, BC, or something. And the guy shows up, and he's on a pedal bike, right, like a mountain bike kind of thing. But he's got a full like face mask, helmet on, like you would have if you were riding a crotch rocket motorcycle. So we couldn't see his face, and we couldn't get a video of him because his face wasn't there, right? We couldn't like 100% prove there was the right guy, right? So we're sitting there, and there's five of us, right? This is way before we got the police involved with our hunts, so we had a crew with us, and the guy is circling around this coffee shop, and we're like, fuck, we know it's him, but we can't prove it, and we can't just walk up and take his helmet off or ask him to take it off, right? He'll just take off on his bike, right? So we leave it alone, and we stop messaging him, and then so he finally messages back the decoy phone and says, okay, well, I'm just gonna leave if you're not here. And so we tell him that we're here and all of that, and he's like, oh, I already left. He's like, I'm down the road a bit. He's like, come meet me down the road. So we're like, okay, we'll walk down there. So we kind of scatter, disperse a bit so we don't look too inconspicuous. And and we're walking down this street, and we walk past this alleyway, and this alleyway is really dark, and it just goes on forever, right? And we walk right past it, and then we get to the spot where the guy said he was, and then we get a text message on the decoy phone saying, "Ha ha, nice try, guys." So that was kind of freaky because he must have been in the alleyway and he just watched us walk right by. That was the last one that I did that I didn't have the police involved, because that just really bothered me. I was like, wow, this guy just saw us walk right by. We might as well have just waved. Yeah. So but we've had some weird ones, even with the police involved. You know, there was a guy in New Westminster that we looked him up before we actually went to do the catch. We looked him up, and he had just gotten out of jail. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks beforehand for a sting that he was involved in, where the police caught him doing the same thing, and he just got out of jail for it. And we caught him again, and he threatened to go home and kill himself. So we showed up to his place with the police, and they arrested him and took all of his cell phones and stuff that he wasn't allowed to have. But it turned out that he didn't have enough content in there to charge him with luring. But because we had the police got involved, they were able to go inside of his apartment there and see that he had some other phones and all that. When part of his conditions were getting out of jail for luring a minor was that he was not allowed to have any access to the internet. So.
Yeah, when these guys are on probation, and I've had a few come through my office, and I always told them at the facilities that I'm at, I'm like, look, I can recommend you certain. I can definitely tell you if you need inpatient or outpatient treatment, but because of your charges, you can't stay here. And they have really weird stipulations when they're on probation and parole. You know, they're not even allowed to have like kids movies and just the weirdest stuff. So to hear that that they were up to the same shit, it doesn't surprise me.
Well, that's the thing, and that's the part that's really weird about this whole thing, right? Because they say it's not a mental illness, but if it wasn't a mental illness, then why would you prevent somebody from watching kids movies? Like, logically, it makes sense. If you're a pedophile or just a predator, you shouldn't be able to watch kids movies or be involved in any way, shape, or form with kids. Like, I totally agree. But at the same time, if there's no real kid involved and it's not being treated like a mental illness, then why are they not allowed to watch the movies? It's kind of a double standard in the justice system there. If they're not allowed to watch kids movies, then it should be treated like a mental illness, because obviously they're not allowed to watch kids movies because people are worried about that bringing up urges in them, right? So at the same time that they're acknowledging that, yes, there's things that can trigger these people because it's a mental health issue, at the same time they're not acknowledging that it's a mental health issue because there's no support there for that, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a double standard in that way.
I was gonna say with with alcoholics and addicts, you wouldn't tell your addict or alcoholic, hey, you shouldn't, there's certain things you shouldn't do, like hang out at the dope spot, hang out in a bar, I don't know. They also have other stipulations that you can't be around other people that are on probation and parole, usually because they have drug or drug related crimes or drugs on them. But it definitely. I agree with you that it is a mental disorder.
Hey,
yeah, what's going on?
Read on the German side that they do an MRI scan.
Yeah.
Look for if they are pedophile or not. But they don't know if it's true or if it's really help. But they are trying to figuring out for scan your brains or whatever.
Yeah, Germany is kind of at the forefront of the whole mental health aspect of this, right? There's a wonderful doctor. I believe he's traveled all over the place in Germany, and I think he's been down in the States, but his name is Dr. Kentor. He's actually wrote a book on the subject, and if you look him up on the internet, he talks quite a bit about. pedophilia and the mental health aspects around it. He's a fantastic advocate for the subject.
I'm gonna look it up later.
Yeah, I would just wonder about those cases, where they're not victims of sexual abuse themselves as children. Then what sets them off, what makes them different. But then you can say the same thing about addiction and alcoholism. There's really not just one standard, not one set way that one becomes an addict.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many different aspects of this issue, right? That it's truly a big problem, right? It's the third fastest growing industry in the world. It's human trafficking, right? And it's something that not a lot of people like to talk about. Everybody likes to think, oh, it's some other country's problem, oh, it's this country's problem, and it's happening over there. People are coming into our country from over here and over there, and that's why it's a problem. But there's a big problem in Canada itself and in the United States of American children and Canadian children that are being trafficked. Right, those are the real issues that people don't really seem to want to a whole lot.
Europe too. A lot. It's a big issue there.
I heard.
Yeah.
I actually heard the biggest country with the most child trafficking rings was Cambodia. Was it? Have you heard about that?
Yeah. I've got a friend of mine actually. His name's Ryan. He's an advocate against human trafficking, and he's actually gone over to Cambodia to help out with the brothels and the situation they have down there. But Cambodia and the Philippines are really bad too, because the Philippines is just they're so poor there that a lot of the parents there will actually offer up their children, and that's a huge problem.
Well, yeah. I heard it was so bad that some of these kids are just homeless kids on the street, and the Johns will offer them food and a roof over their head and a shower and money, and they just and they accept this as normal, a normal part of their society.
Yeah, they go into survivor mode, right?
Yeah.
It's really sad, man. It's a really terrible thing.
Also for organs too.
Yeah. I've seen that too.
I would say organ harvesting. I only hear about that stuff from Central Asia, nowhere else though.
That's bad there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read a lot about it. Yeah, there. Kidneys, all kinds of organs, what. Yeah.
So you're down in the States then, is that right?
Yeah. I'm in the stateside, and Kevin is in Belgium.
Belgium.
Let me see if any of our viewers have any. Does any of our viewers have any questions for Brendan? Oh, Munir says that Cambodian parents use them to cheat tourists. Wait.
Oh, I see.
Any questions?
Crickets, eh? Crickets.
Crickets.
That's okay. I'm gonna keep talking about this until somebody at the top tells me to shut my mouth. But somebody's got to be bringing up these subjects. It's a very terrible thing that there is solutions that can be there if the governments are willing to do them, right? So
here's a question. Here's a personal question. What do you think? And I've been tipped off on stuff like this, only to find out that they're not what they seem. Been tipped off on pedophile rings on Facebook. They look like the real deal. All the players look like they're really not. They're all about, like, it's all fake. You ever heard of shit like that? Where they're just a bunch of creep. It's like a honeypot.
Yeah, I get people sending me messages of different Facebook groups and things like that. There's not really a whole lot that we can do with that information. The best thing you could do Um, at least in Canada here, I'm not sure who you'd report it to in the United States, but I know in Canada, you can report it to, there's a website called cybertips.ca or .com. And that's where you can, or government has set up this tip line for any sort of online activity that people want to report. And that's basically the best thing that people can do with those. You know, there's so many pages out there and everything. You don't really, it's hard to tell what's real and what's not. And it's really best to let the professionals make that call. Yeah. So that's usually what I tell people. I get people that reach out too that say, you know, oh, my daughter's being stalked by this person. Is there anything you can do? Oh, this thing's happening, and there's not anything we can really do except for bring it to the police's attention. And most of the time, we can't even take on those type of things unless there's a police file already created. Then we can sort of see how we can help and all of that. But the best thing to do is just report it to the authorities right away. You know.
At least there's a log or something happening in case something does happen.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, I was gonna say because usually with these pedophile rings, like I've heard this from other people, is that even when they get reported, a lot of them don't even go down, which is kind of suspicious even to me.
Yeah, well, again, I think that stems a lot from, you know, it's such a big problem that the authorities might not have the manpower to be able to deal with every single one. You know.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
As far as Facebook goes, there's a lot of issues regarding laws and stuff like that, and regarding social media that have to change, and that's part of the problem, right? Is that social media and the internet, it's only been out since, you know, the internet was created in 1991 in August, and you know, it's such a new thing, but the people that are in power and the people that are monitoring this stuff, you know, they're not kids. They don't they're not in the same areas on the internet that kids hang out, right? And the more the internet is up, the more people are being born into this world, the more people that are being born onto the internet, literally, the bigger the problem is going to become, right? So we really got to take a stronghold on the issue while we can. So, right?
Yeah.
I mean, too, there's lots of kids growing up on the internet. How many of those kids are, you know, the future online predators that are growing up right now online, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah, I don't know if you ever caught this, but there was this viral video that was going around on the internet where this guy was doing trying to show the parents, you know, how easily kids are vulnerable to. And he was driving around in a car, in a nice car, and was telling the kids to come in, and he would drive them around in the car, and a lot of the kids would just go in there, and it would come back to the parents and tell them that your kids just hopped in my car, and all this and that. But yeah, kids are very vulnerable.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know what the statistics are down in the U.S. yet, but I know in Canada they did just recently. They did a survey through the schools, and 65% of the minors that were surveyed said that they would give their information to a stranger, whether that be, you know, their address or their phone number or whatever personal information. That 65% of the kids that did this survey said, yes, I would give out my information over the internet. And that's a scary thing, even not for their own safety, but also for the parents' safety, right? Because you don't want your kid giving out your address to some weirdo online and then having somebody show up at your house, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
That's crazy. Now you've done some radio, right? You were on a radio show recently.
yeah, I've been on quite a few.
I got you. I only managed to catch one where they did It wasn't. I think you were in there. Or you were live streaming from the studio.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was CKNW. They're fantastic.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
surprised how short the interview was.
Yeah, well, yeah, CKNW is awesome. There's a couple of news outlets out here in Canada that really support us and support our efforts. So it's really good to have that, especially because we don't publicly shame. So our videos they don't get the hundreds of thousands of views like other ones do, and that's fine. We do this regardless if we post a video or not. But at the same time, having the media outlets support is very valuable for trying to create the change that we're looking for, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, if somebody wanted to do what you're doing now, what would you recommend to somebody who wants to start doing what you're doing?
Well, we have an online training program. It's on our website, creephunters.org, and you click on the den there. And the online training program will teach you about the laws. It kind of teaches you sort of the do's and the don'ts of how to talk to the individuals and the rest of it. And some of the information in there has been tipped off to us from some different officers of law enforcement. But really, the main thing is making sure that you don't, initiate first contact. You're not going after anybody. You're not asking to meet them. You're not talking sexual. The biggest thing I can tell people is to report the information to the police, right? Even if you are going to go out of your way and do this type of stuff and do the trial and error and all of that, I would say, if I could say anything, I would say make sure you call the police when the person wants to meet your decoy. That's the biggest stress. And don't post your chat logs on the internet. I see these groups posting their chat logs on the internet. Man, that pisses me off. Because what they don't realize is that when you post your chat logs on the internet, you're giving a handbook out to the other predators to see, hey, look, this is how we talk. So if you see somebody talking like this, it's one of our decoys, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just very, very much against posting those chat logs, man. Just
Have you
I
ever
can't stress.
have you ever come into like reckless hunters that just hit up random profiles? One of them, I think it was a reckless hunter hit up one of my profiles that looked like a real person, and it was definitely. I never accepted the request, but they kept on texting and texting and texting and texting. It was obviously a kid, so I had to report the account down. But you ever get any? You ever get any? You run into hunters like that where they're just hitting up random profiles?
I mean, nobody from my own group, no, but I've seen on the internet just browsing kind of thing. I've seen people that have, created their own chat logs, right? Where, they tell the guy that they're 17 years old or whatever, right? Which is still creepy, don't get me wrong. But then when they do their video and stuff, you see their chat logs, after the fact, and they've been doctored, they've gotten rid of the one, so it looks like they're talking to a 7-year-old kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's not anybody in my group. That's just sort of Facebook, sort of Google gossip, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Not
Kevin.
everybody that does this has intentions on helping children, right? Some people are in this because they want the recognition. They want to be famous, or they want lots of likes, or whatever the case is, right?
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate thing. If there was a lot of people doing this to actually protect children, then I'm a strong believer that there would be more people bringing their stuff to the police. But it's that, it's bringing it to the police without posting it on social media that really deters a lot of these catchers from actually doing so, right? Because then they have to go through all the work of chatting with this weirdo and everything, and then they don't get any recognition for it. And it's not about the recognition. It's supposed to be about selfless thing that you're doing in order to protect kids. And the way to protect kids is to bring your information to the police so that they can make arrests and get their search warrants and do what they're trained to do, which they do a fantastic job at doing if you'd give them the information, right?
It's to interrupt you. I have your girlfriend here next to me, and she gave me just a name from a guy that sent his thing. You know what? To little children from 9 years old and other people, little children. She have this name now. She just gave it to me. And, I'm gonna look into it.
Yeah, it's not a very pleasant sight to see, is it?
Oh, no, but I have his name.
See, what I would do with that is I would report that to your local authorities immediately, right? Because they'll be able to further investigate what's going on there.
Yeah, I think this guy is maybe 19 years old, 20 years old, maybe.
Hitting up
And
9-year-olds.
he's to 9 years old.
Yeah. It's crazy, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the internet, like you say. Yeah,
Yeah, and
all this chats and all this not control too, they can do what they want, and that's must be more. Yeah, how you say this? More security on the chats, You know what I mean? Yes. In Belgium, it's a big problem here too. You have a lot of pedophiles, things. There are a bunch of them. It's sad, but pedophiles they never have a treatment. Never. They try maybe a year in a jail, and a year after they're out, and they start again. And yeah, that's
Well,
right.
I heard a story. God, about 10 years ago. It was somewhere out in the West Coast where they couldn't. These guys were on parole for sexual crimes and ranging anywhere from pedophilia to rape. But they couldn't house them in any place around there, so a lot of them ended up in this facility, right, where they could live, and a lot of I don't know what kind of mental health services they received while they were in custody. Probably none, and if they're lucky, they'll probably get a few psychiatric sessions. But what I was hearing is that they were doing bad things to each other in this call. You know what I mean?
yeah, that's
But I think it's a disease. I don't know. They say it's a disease, but like
Well, if you
like
think about it, right, anything that will produce pleasure, all right, if we think with addictions and mental disorders, something that gives them a release, something that gives them a high, a stimulant. It could be gambling, it could be eating, it could be it's all along that pleasure center thinking. And
if you are addicted, are you? Is it a disease? Yeah,
a
I
mental
don't know.
they call it a mental disorder or disease. Yeah.
Like you guys, the most people are abused when they were young. Also,
They're also thinking that even racism is a form of is another disorder. They're looking into that as well. They're either post traumatic stress or learned behavior.
yeah.
yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah. So
But I'm glad that he mentioned all those kinds of this. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a bad problem in the world now, and that's true. And Yeah.
I'd love to have you guys on our show. Let's talk change. We're doing another one. When is it? July 29th, I think it is. It's on the Creep Hunter site. But if you guys send me a message on Facebook, I'd love to have you guys involved in the conversation on that if you'd like.
Okay, I wasn't even aware that you even had a show.
Okay.
Yeah, we just started it. It's called Let's Talk Change. It stems from an event that we did in Vancouver, BC, where we had an ICE agent come out and he spoke on a public format, and we live streamed it and stuff, and it went really good. So we're trying to do these events at different venues throughout the country once a month, kind of thing. But then we also do weekly events where we just do the webinars.
That's awesome. That's good.
Love for you guys to come out and talk on those if you guys are.
Sure.
Yeah.
You see, let me hit up our audience again, and so does anybody have a question for Brendan? I'm looking through these comments.
Mosquitoes.
Wait. Somebody says it's legal in Canada for someone to be 16 to be with somebody who is 18. You know.
Yeah, here
iPhone.
too in Belgium.
My
Yeah.
phone's cutting out, guys. I'll be right back.
Yeah, here in Belgium too, I think.
Yeah, here.
I can look it up.
Here in
I
the
think if you're 16 years old and you can have sex. Yeah, it's from this year, say my friend here. I can look it up. I'm not sure, but
I think the age of consent, and then don't quote me on this, varies from state to state. Here in the U.S., I think, if my memory's right, I think the age of consent in one state is like 14 in one state, but I don't know where
14.
I don't even know where that. I couldn't quote you on that. I think my memory corrects me, somewhere in the lower east U.S. Yes.
14 is young.
Well, I think that's when they can get married, so I'm assuming that that's the age of consent in that state, Ohio. I think it's Kentucky, but I could be wrong. So I don't want to put any labels on there until I'm 100% certain. So
Yeah, I look it up just and yeah, it's legal. Yeah, 16 years. Yeah.
across Canada, 14 is consent in certain provinces.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's there were some rumors that were going around where they were trying to remember when the Pizzagate stuff was going around, and there was a lot of they're trying to downplay the pedophilia. It's a problem, dude. It is a problem.
It's a big problem.
Yeah.
And yeah, mostly these people, these pedophiles, they don't give them the good treatment or yeah.
Well, as far as I understand it, since the DSM-5 took out, the Diagnostic Statistics Manual took out the ICD-10 code for pedophilia, which means that you can't diagnose it as a mental disorder with any type of treatment here. But yeah, I mean, you could always go delve into intensive psychotherapy, and go into other aspects of how this disorder came to be. But as you said, Germany is the leading country in this disorder. So they might know other things that the rest of the psychology world doesn't know. You know, psychology is a very, very new subject. It's only been around for like the last 120 years. You know.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
Right here in
still,
Belgium.
mental illness is still very much.
yeah, I was gonna say most.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brendan.
You know, even when like my parents were growing up and stuff too, right? Like there was no such thing as mental illness, right? It was just starting to become mainstream.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember when I was a kid, the big thing was, you know, I was a prodigy of, the 80s. You know, where the big thing was ADD, ADHD. You know, and you know, I was a lot of those kids, you know, from that era. You know, were given, given Ritalin and Dexedrine and stuff like that. You know, my generation, you know, at least from my part of the world, from where I'm from. A lot of those kids became drug addicts because of those medications, you know.
Yeah, it's really sad.
But yes, psychology overall is still in its same thing with medicine, modern medicine. It's still in its baby fields, and I hate to downplay, self help groups, but I hate to say it, but medical breakthroughs are getting there, for a lot of these disorders. So
Can this treat treat this disorder or?
I actually
don't know.
I wouldn't know. I'm not up to par on the treatment for this. You know.
But yeah, I read
Seems
here
like you have
in
a bit of a
Belgium.
medical background there, Tyler.
Yeah. I had a failed medical career that I kind of screwed up with a huge drug charge at a young age, and then got into drug and alcohol counseling after I got clean. So I've been around the block.
Right.
Yeah, I think in my early 20s I got arrested. They were gonna offer me it wasn't like a normal everyday drug charge. I got in trouble with I've said it before on the show, so I might as well say it again. I got in I was making drugs, and so when I got caught, when I got caught, I got caught. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you was making it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, good on you for getting clean, man.
Yeah.
Good on you. That's something to be very proud of, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I was clean for 7 years, and then I went out about 2 years ago, and I was working at, let's just say that there are facilities out there in the U.S. that deal with the most worst cases that you would want to deal with. So I was working with people that were still in handcuffs, jail transfers. I would have people in armored cars come in. The top wing of where I was working was pregnant women who are addicted to drugs, and having the baby outside of the normal everyday correctional facility. I was working with not only on top of that, I was dealing with severe mental disorders on top of the drug addiction. So we had schizophrenics who were addicted to crack and heroin and stuff like that. Some of the worst cases you'll see.
No doubt.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Holy man.
Yeah. I would have stayed in the field, but to be honest with you, money just ain't there. I mean, you can get an education. You can get an education in the field, but if you can't pay your bills, then it's time to move on to something else. I feel like it was a stepping stone for something else,
Yeah, well, we're always looking for people with a medical background for our Let's Talk Change conversations, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me see if there's any questions coming up.
Yeah, I'm looking too.
I don't even know where we are right now. Just somewhere out in the ether.
Wait, if I have this guy's saying, Bonnie is saying, if I have a broken arm and I go to the doctor, if my head is broken, I go to the psychiatrist, not a self-help group that is going to give me a blind diagnosis in the blind. Yes, Bonnie, I do agree with you. Okay, I was in those 12 those self-help 12-step things. I do agree with you, but when we're dealing with how should I say? I've dealt with thousands of clients, okay? And yes, the standard treatment does work, okay? Standard treatment does work, but not for all people. When you're dealing with that 1% that can't stay sober or can't do this for the light of day, then you should probably go and explore those self-help groups. But a lot of them on the underlying self-help groups, you're gonna find a lot of faith-based that God will solve all your problems, or there will be steps, such as in the 12 steps. There are 12 steps that you do. Some of them aren't faith-based. There's also Smart Recovery, which is like the 12 steps, but you don't have the God aspect of it. And then you have the integration of religion and the faith base going in hand in hand. But sometimes the standard issue when it comes to some of the disorders I'm talking about, especially just drug addiction, you might want to explore those areas, because just getting your ass covered on both ends would be a great way to go. I personally, over the years, walked away from self-help programs only because of interactions with been around the block. I've been doing this for 10 years. Haven't been to meetings in years, so yeah, I don't know. That's a personal thing. Some people walk away and some people stay sober, some people don't, but it's not always, it doesn't always work for everybody.
Well, guys, I think I'm gonna have to cut this short. I gotta make
a phone call.
Yeah, I gotta get off this phone so I can use it. I gotta call the RCMP here. I think I have a guy who wants to be my decoy.
I gotcha.
But thank you guys so much for having me on the show, and I'd love to do it again sometime.
All right, cool. Anytime.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
thank you guys so much for having me.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, we'll talk soon, eh?
All right.
Okay, no problem.
Later.
Bye.
All right, on to our next subject, which is, I wanted to bring this up, is Senate Bill 720 HR 1697, the Israeli Anti-Boycott Act. So essentially, there's this bill that's backed by 43 senators, 247 House members, to effectively criminalize, support, boycott, and divestment and sanctions to force Israel to end its human rights issues with Palestine. The supposed bill will, if it passes, will levy penalties. This is just a synopsis. Up to 20 years in prison and anywhere between a $250,000 to a $1 million fine.
Is this only in United States of?
No, from when I've heard about this, reading about it, there's been other countries that have adopted similar policies. I'm not going to say, my stance, one way or the other, but when you start, as the ACLU was going at it, was saying that once you start imposing or condoning basic constitutional rights, which is laws overlapping, that's just one step. It is a form of censorship. So basically, if you exercise your political beliefs, if this goes through, let's say that you're going to boycott, or not support Israel, you could potentially go to jail for up to 20 years.
For protest against to.
Essentially, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn.
Yeah. Yeah, there's other countries that are more harsh. Some countries have adopted hate speech and stuff like that. But here in America, that's one of the constitutional rights that we have is to exercise our political rights. But one by one, stuff like this does pop up, here and there. That one Senate bill that was going to pass. It didn't pass. There were 17 states that were adopted. I was only following a couple of them, and they didn't pass. And it was the protesting one, where like if something happened, if violence had broken out because of your protest, the local government could seize your property and assets if something had arose. So. Yeah, so one by one, our rights are being taken away. Do they have the resist bot on this? Let me see.
I'm looking here on the sites here in Belgium what they do, but nothing.
Look up UK. Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
UK, same thing. Same thing. UK had adopted a similar, I believe a similar. Let me see. UK, Israel boycott. Yeah, the UK.
Also, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. When you hear about stuff, it talks about bigger issues that gradually one by one our rights are being taken away. I hate to say this, but I think that things have to get really bad, before they change, and I think that every time stuff like this pops up, that's a little niche in the problem, but people won't do anything until something gets really really bad.
Yeah. It's ridiculous that they.
Huh?
Yeah, this law they want to do with you guys.
Let me see when they vote on it. This just came up yesterday, so.
Yeah, it's first heard about this.
I mean, the U.S. does have more absurd laws, they're here and there, but this one for exercising your political rights, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, but does this say nothing here? Nothing. But that's no.
Yeah, 45 senators support a bill that makes boycotting Israel a crime. Yeah,
No,
the ACLU is calling it a direct violation of the First Amendment. I was gonna say, basically, our Constitution has been up in the air, technically for a long time,
Yeah. Oh wait. It's. Yeah, I'm searching.
Am I still live?
Uh, I don't know. Yeah.
You know, I'm just calling this a prediction, but I would say that laws like this, or I'll predict that in the next 10 years, gradually, one by one, your rights will be taken away. You know,
That's true.
it's
Yeah,
true. Yeah, and to what ultimate purpose? Would it's for a failing nation state. It's control, the last final stand.
take all.
Well, and ultimately, they want you to be subordinate. Don't ask questions, just follow the rules, obey, conform, and if you don't, we'll lock your ass up. You know.
Yeah, it's gonna be worse and worse eventually.
I don't think it's going to get any better unless, but the way the state that our country's in right now, you can't just blame it on the government. What you can do is blaming the average citizens for not getting involved. Just letting the people in power run it like they know what they're doing. Without making a shitstorm. I mean, there are groups, there are a lot of people that are out there that are trying to make a lot of change, but the majority of citizens don't give a shit about fucking politics. You know.
Yeah,
And this is how we ended up the way that we are. We just we let fucking psychos and fucking people that will sell seats or would do whatever, do shady back end deals, fucking run shit, and this is the state that we're in.
but that's what they try to do. I think here too. I think they try to do this here, like they do in where you live, United States. They it's different, between Europe and United States. The law is totally different, but we have more rights. Yeah, every country is different,
Well, I think
we
what we're seeing. What we're seeing here. Um, is not just a problem. Here in the U.S. There's problems all over the world that are similar. You might have different players. You might have, you know, different situations, but essentially, what it boils down to is that the governments don't realize that they don't serve us. I mean, they're supposed to serve the people, not their own personal benefits.
nope. I see nothing here about this law that you say. This no.
Yeah, will this thing go away out of the media? Probably. Um, but you'll probably see it in pockets. But I really, I mean, if something like this passes, you will see upward. I mean, the ACLU is making a big shit about it, so I'm probably wrong about that. It probably will keep on popping up and not popping up. The ACLU does have some flack. Um, should I even get into this now that we're talking about Israel? Um, back in the 1970s, in Skokie, Illinois, which was the largest. This is a shady past about the ACLU. So there's a large Holocaust survivors in that area in the U.S. and the ACLU, there was the neo-Nazi protests had happened in there. The ACLU was backing them up for defending their constitutional rights. So I mean, does it look bad? Of course it does. But when it comes to but what their focus was is that, as it was this time, was backing up, your constitutional rights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No questions or something. No.
I'm not seeing them unless I'm having an error.
We have no.
Are you seeing any on your end?
What?
I'm not seeing any on my end. We did have more guests on the panel on the back end, but I don't know what's going on.
Are we 2 or 3 or not?
They left.
Oh, no.
What else is going on in the world?
Everything.
Well, there was some more. There was some more stuff on WikiLeaks. Let me pull it up real quick. WikiLeaks. Look, there were 5 new exploits that came out. Oh yeah, and the CIA director also said that WikiLeaks will take down America any way they can. Of course he's mad because you guys developed the tools that they're releasing. Well, a lot of those tools that they're coming out with, or that are being leaked, they weren't using these on political targets. They're using to spy on the everyday citizen.
Yeah.
To what end? I don't fucking know. What are they after?
Yeah.
I don't.
What? I don't know.
But I do commend WikiLeaks for putting stuff like this out there. Trump supported. This is a funny thing, and you'll see this. You'll see this a lot with him, is that Trump said he supported WikiLeaks, and then after the election, it was a problem. So only because they were going after his Hillary. But
Did he support it? Yeah. Before the election, yeah.
before the election, they'll all say anything to get elected.
But not anymore.
Oh, Brian Smith says, I don't, just got here, I don't know what was really being talked about. Well, we did have Brennan from Creep Hunters talk for a bit, and they were talking about the boycotting Israel being a crime. If this thing gets passed, hypothetically, 20 years in jail, anywhere between 200 and a fine of anywhere between $250,000 to $1 million. So, let me see if I still got the Senate bill. Senate bill number. Senate Bill 720/HR 1697.
And do you have, guys, there in the United States some new protests or?
To be honest with you, this just came to my attention yesterday. I'm seeing most of the articles. This article is from 2 days ago, so it's probably been on the plate for a little while. I think in the future, I'm going to start putting out some documentaries from a guy. He talks about a lot of the stuff that you're seeing. Uh, well, he does a lot of spoken word documentaries about stuff that when you start seeing stuff like this in politics and the way that people are reacting and the way that the militarization of the police and stuff like that. I'm gonna get some more of his documentaries up on a few of my days off. Larkin Rose is his name. He speaks a lot about nation states and stuff like that.
We also must to do tell our it's more the information about Europe, and America, because we don't know a lot about you guys, the laws and what's happened there and otherwise too, like a lot of things I don't know where you sometimes on the live stream I follow, but some things I don't know, I mean, from switch from I know, how you say this, yeah, the to tell more information about us, what happened here, and because there are a lot of things that you don't know about here too, or otherwise, that we can talk more about the different kinds of problems and things that happen in the
Yeah.
because a lot of things are different too, like the laws are different here, and
Yeah, do you guys have an op coming up?
yeah, a couple Awakenings, that's for prepare for the 5th of November, then some meetings that they do, and I tried to start this meeting on Discord, but it's not a success.
Yeah. You have to it's a different crowd on Discord, there's people that are fully integrated onto it, or you got your people that are just Facebook, and then you and I will know that that Facebook isn't necessarily a good place to be organizing any of this stuff.
A lot of people have problems with Discord. That but I like it, but it's take maybe a couple days when you are used to it. But
oh yeah, then you can start putting your bots in, and then it starts to get fun.
Yeah. But yeah, some little protests, awakenings, and talking about meetings about safe renters, here also about human rights, animal rights here in Belgium also. A little bit everything.
Also, I believe. Let me see if Jody's still doing this. On September 11th will be end the Fed. Let me see. Where is it?
Protesting up?
Yeah, well, I mean, essentially on September 11th, they're asking people, to protest in front of the Fed on September 11th. It's just always been a big thing of mine. It's something that needs to go. I could show. I mean, it would take me hours to explain. Essentially, how it impacts. I do have a couple of videos I think you've seen it where I played around with showing it here and there. Where I've condensed it down to as like around 8 minutes, but it does take a while to explain. I'm just looking for Jody's.
Send them to me if you can.
Yeah. I have his thing. I'm looking for it on. There it is. Nationwide March. It's on MeWe. Just look for the group National March to End the Federal Reserve. This is Jody's baby. What is he saying? And on here, he has all of the banks. You can look them up. San Francisco, Kansas City, Minneapolis, St. Louis, Chicago, Atlanta, Richmond, Cleveland, Philadelphia, New York, Boston. There are more. He's also on Facebook.com. Look up Nationwide End to the Federal Reserve. See.
But you guys, all the states work together too. Yeah. Every different kind of state. Are they all go to the same hub or not?
You can. I'm trying to look up what Jody was saying. I think the ideal thing would be to, show up to your local Federal Reserve and start protesting. They got them in California, Chicago. East. Nope.
That's some problem here with us because every country here is in different kinds of language, and it's difficult for.
You mean like a worldwide, and the central banks?
Yeah.
All they do is cause problems. Yeah, and the Fed is also tied into the IRS. So. Kind of ran out of topics to talk about. Oh. You there?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the mood, for talk, but no guests.
Thinking. Yeah, we can call it. We can call it,
The last three shows, yeah, there are different topics that I don't know about it. Sometimes that's what I'm saying. Sometimes I want more about your information about the United States. What's happened there, and
for sure, and I'll show you some of my links that I get. Before the show, I just wasn't sure where other panel members had gone. But it is a Saturday, so. Alrighty, so I guess I'll end it with that, and we'll cut out.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. See you guys.
I hereby declare this to be an unlawful assembly.